Now that we have this sculpture all blocked out, we're going to get the forms refined a little bit. So before we get into adding stuff like fur and smaller details, I want to make sure the anatomy is looking good. And I need to give him a face, because right now he's just a blocky child. On this phase, I like to use loop tools to help me refine the forms. And just slowly scrape away at the clay. Right now I'm trying to define the shoulder a little bit more. And I just generally scrape away in the direction of the form I'm working on. You don't just want to do straight lines like that. Actually following the flow of the muscle or whatever form you're working on. And then when you go to smooth it out, it just makes it that much easier. And you'll also probably want to be adding clay on certain areas. I actually might go ahead and jump into the face here because I don't like working on a figure with a blank face for too long. I feel like once I get the face in place, it kind of gives me more of a like an anchor point almost. I don't know, it's easier for me to envision the final product once the face is there looking back at me. I'm just going to bulk out the neck a little bit first, because when I do the jawline, I want it to be overlapping properly. So you can see I'm just slowly adding pieces and blending them in. So now that the neck is bulked out a little bit more, you can see what I mean, like the jawline there is kind of a little bit concave at the moment because I haven't really defined it. So I can just go in with a piece of clay like that and blend it in. So now the jawline is actually overlapping the neck. As you're turning at your sculpture and working on one area, you'll see spots that you want to fix, so just attack them as you see them. It's okay to be moving around the sculpture a bit. With areas that are symmetrical, like the face, it's really good to do both sides at the same time. So I just did, the one side of the jawline, and I'm going to go ahead while it's fresh in my mind and do the second side. Sometimes I fall into the habit of getting stuck working on one side and then I go back to the other side, and sometimes if you don't keep pace, that can be kind of hard to remember how you did that first side. So if you go and completely finish the first side and then go to start the second side, you're just like, wait, how did I do that? But if you do the left jawline, then the right jawline, the left eye, then the right eye, and kind of keep that rhythm, it'll really help keep things symmetrical. And it is true that faces are not truly symmetrical. There is some form of asymmetry to them, but you don't want them to be lopsided and wonky. Should still be relatively even. For eye sockets, I like to pinch on either side of the nose/muzzle area and create some dents. Those eyes are set into the head, so creating sockets for them can help create that depth that you really want to see with the eyes. Now for the eyes themselves, you can use clay. Sometimes that can be a little difficult to sculpt around, so I do prefer to use these steel ball bearings. You can get these on Amazon or hardware stores. Just come in bulk packages usually. You can get them in different diameters. You can also use beads or marbles. You can also use baked pieces of clay. You can roll out little balls of Sculpey, bake them in the oven, and then they'll become hard and you can press them into your sculpture. Okay, so I had pulled out a few different sizes because I wasn't totally sure which ones I needed, but the bigger ones are going to be my choice here. Okay, so now that the eyes are in place, I can sculpt the eyelids around it and the cheekbone and the eyebrow/eye ridge. We usually start with the brow line. I'm going to add a little bulk to the forehead area. I'm just kind of forming the snout here. I only had a very basic shape in there before. Still kind of looking like a weird alien, but that's okay. Really just working on getting symmetry going as well as just laying in those foundation forms. I'm gonna pop a couple ears on there to help give me some reference points. His nose is too long. So this stage is really a lot of trial and error. Just figuring out what looks accurate. With the ears, I like to do this triangle shape and then press it onto the head and kind of curve it around. So it sits on the head properly. Just laying in the overall shape at this point, not worrying about getting it looking 100% accurate just yet. Just kind of roughing everything in. Move that jawline a little bit, and then defining around the eyes. Some people like to sculpt the eyelids first. I had put in the eye ridge / brow and the cheekbone first. For me, that helps get the positioning right, and then I go back in. You can see I'm kind of carving around the eyes to make room for the lids. And for the lids, I just roll out these thin little ropes of clay like so. I've already got like a little gap in there. Just lay that in like that. Cut off the excess. Roll that one back up. Oops. Do the top lid the same way. Can use a needle tool like this one to kind of define the outline of the eye along the inside of the lids. Just kind of pushes that clay away from the eyeball. Really gets that outline that you're looking for. Going back and redefining the brow a little bit further. Okay, before I go too far on that side, make sure I get this eye in. Like I said before, you don't want to go all the way on one side and then leave the other side hanging back behind. Okay, so we're going to get some eyelids on this side. The bottom. And the top. Redefining the brow on that side. There's something about doing the face first that kind of gets me excited about working on the rest of the piece. So much of the character is in the face, on the eyes. So once that's in a good spot, it can be a lot more fun to jump into the rest of the sculpture. I just push that eye towards the center a little bit more. I'm gonna have to do it with both eyes, actually. They were out a little far. Sometimes I even, to push it forward, just go through the back of the head. And this is why we stay super rough starting out, because you want to make sure everything's in position right before you really go in with the fine details. You're going to have to make adjustments, so don't jump into detail work too fast. Center lines are another thing that can help you with symmetry. I'm just drawing in a line here to see if I've been keeping things nice and even. Too bad. I'm just kind of pressing my fingers into the cup of the ear there and getting it so that they're kind of indented a little bit. Don't want them to be flat, straight triangles just sitting on top of the head. They actually do have depth to them. You can use loop tool to deepen that. Taking clay and placing it on the back of the ear to give it a little more mass. I like to use the barrel of either this needle tool or the rubber tool, depending on what area I'm working in. And that helps smooth pieces of clay together really nice. So now that I had a little bit more bulk on the back of that ear, I can go in and deepen that a little bit further. I've also got this finer loop tool. Ear's getting a little big there. I'm going to do the same for the other side, the other ear. Get some clay on the back of that ear. And my needle tool to help smooth it in. Form it a little bit. So I'm just going to add a couple of fluffs on the cheeks to get some dimension going there. So it's very similar to the way I did the jawline at first, adding that triangle shape, blending it into the face, but then leaving that edge that overlaps the neck. These fine wire loop tools, they've got like a texture that they create. Really nice for paring down. So just redefining this eyelid a little bit. Now I'm going back and adding more to the cheekbones. So it's got some more dimension going on from the front. If you find you have a lot of issues with the clay warming up and getting squishy, especially on a warm day, you can actually pop your sculpture in the fridge or freezer to let it cool down a little bit, and then you can go back to it after it's firmed up a bit. Also, sculpting with a fan on your hands can help keep things cool while you're working. Alright, I'm going to start adding some definition to this snout. So I'm going to get that center line back in a little bit. Bring it around the front. Mark in where the mouth goes. So now it looks like it's overlapping a little bit there. You can define that a little bit more by scraping some clay off along that mouth line. Checking evenness on some of my forms here. Making sure nothing got squished out of place as I was working, which happens. Go ahead and get his little nose bean in there. Just a little triangle, I just kind of gently dab into place. And I can go back and add a little detail. Nostrils. Add a little bit to the bridge of the nose. So the taper's a little more subtle. think I'm gonna leave the face alone for a little bit, let it kind of cool off. It's starting to get a bit squishy. So I'm gonna move back down to the limbs, start working on those.